You are standing before a wall. Maybe it is a wall of debt, a wall of sickness, or a wall of loneliness. It looks solid. It looks high. Your logical mind tells you to climb it or smash it with a hammer. Florence Scovel Shinn revealed that touching the wall is a mistake. Using the ancient metaphysics of the walls of Jericho, she taught that you do not fight the obstacle, you vibrate it to dust. There is a specific sound, a specific command, that shatters the molecular structure of your problem without you lifting a finger. This is not poetry. This is precision. This is the science of spiritual demolition. The pain is the feeling of being trapped, seeing your desire on the other side but having no way to reach it. You are exhausting yourself, throwing your body against the stones. You wake each morning and the wall is still there, unmoved by your effort, unimpressed by your struggle. You have tried strategy, you have tried force, you have tried patience, and still the barrier stands between you and the life you were meant to live. Shinn promises that if you use the spiritual explosion of the word, the wall does not just open, it vanishes. It crumbles because it cannot sustain its form against the frequency of truth. The obstacle that has defined your reality for months or years is nothing more than hardened thought, and thought can be dissolved by a higher thought the way ice melts before fire. What you are facing is not actually solid. It only appears solid because you have been taught to believe in the permanence of problems. You have been conditioned to see obstacles as fixed structures requiring physical effort to overcome. But Shinn understood what quantum physics would later confirm, that matter is not solid at all, but energy in a particular pattern of vibration. Your wall of debt, your wall of rejection, your wall of limitation is simply energy vibrating at the frequency of fear. And when you introduce the frequency of faith through the power of the spoken word, the two frequencies cannot coexist in the same space. One must yield, and the lower frequency always collapses before the higher. In this video, we will learn the Jericho Protocol, how to march around your problem and shout it down. This is not metaphor. This is method. We will examine the exact sequence of mental positions and spoken decrees that cause barriers to destabilize and fall. But there is a trap called the silent doubt. You can shout all day, but if you hold a specific silent image in your mind while you shout, you are reinforcing the wall instead of breaking it. I will explain this structural reinforcement in Part 4, because understanding this single principle is the difference between those who collapse walls and those who exhaust themselves shouting at stones that never move. Before we begin the protocol, you must make a choice. You must decide whether you are willing to believe that your voice carries power, that your word is not just sound, but substance, that when you speak with conviction, you are not hoping for change, but commanding it. Shinn called this the victorious attitude, and without it the protocol is just noise. With it you become the operator of universal law, the one who speaks and watches reality rearrange itself to match your decree. This is your inheritance. This is your design. You were built to command, not to beg. If you are ready to learn the science of spiritual demolition, to understand why some prayers collapse mountains while others echo uselessly against stone, then subscribe to this channel now. Comment below with the words "I command it to fall" to sound the trumpet, to add your voice to the frequency of those who refuse to accept barriers as permanent. Like this video to activate the algorithm of sacred knowledge, ensuring that this teaching reaches others who stand before walls they were never meant to climb. Now let us enter the foundation, where we will examine why success is not a secret but a system, and why your words are more powerful than you have been permitted to know. Success is not a secret, it is a system. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that words are radioactive, meaning they carry a charge, a frequency, a power to alter the molecular structure of circumstance. A wall, any obstacle you face, is nothing but a hardened mass of negative thought. It looks physical. It appears to be made of matter, of concrete reality that cannot be argued with or wished away. But Shinn understood what mystics have always known, that the physical world is the final stage of a process that begins in consciousness. Your wall of debt is not made of money problems. It is made of the thoughts and words that preceded the debt, the beliefs about lack that solidified into circumstance. Think of it this way. When water freezes, it becomes ice. The ice appears to be a completely different substance than water, solid where water is fluid, hard where water is soft. But ice is still water. It has simply changed its rate of vibration. Lower the temperature, slow the molecular movement, and water becomes ice. Raise the temperature, increase the vibration, and ice returns to water. Your obstacle is frozen thought. It is a belief about limitation that has been held so consistently, spoken about so frequently, worried over so intensely, that it has condensed from the invisible realm of mind into the visible realm of matter. The wall you see is not the problem. It is the effect. The problem is the pattern of thought that built the wall brick by brick through repetition and emotional intensity. Shinn discovered that just as an opera singer can shatter a glass with the right note, you can shatter a situation with the right affirmation. This is not magic. This is resonance. Every object has a natural frequency at which it vibrates. When an external force matches that frequency, the object begins to vibrate in sympathy. If the matching frequency is sustained and amplified, the object vibrates so violently that its structure cannot hold, and it shatters. The wine glass does not break because the singer is loud. It breaks because the singer has matched the exact pitch at which the glass naturally resonates. Volume is irrelevant. Precision is everything. Your affirmation, your spoken word, is that precise pitch. The shout is not about volume. It is about conviction. It is about speaking with such certainty, such alignment with truth, that your words carry the frequency of the absolute. When you affirm, "I am prosperous," you are not trying to convince yourself of a lie. You are tuning your consciousness to the frequency of prosperity, and when that frequency is sustained, the frozen thought form of lack cannot maintain its structure. It begins to vibrate. It begins to crack. And if you hold the frequency long enough, it shatters completely, and the circumstance that reflected that thought form dissolves with it. Most people do not understand this. They think affirmations are positive thinking, a way to feel better about a bad situation. They speak words of abundance while secretly believing in scarcity, and then they wonder why nothing changes. Shinn would say they are trying to build with one hand while tearing down with the other. The words they speak carry one frequency, but the images they hold in their mind carry another, and the two frequencies cancel each other out. The wall remains because the mental blueprint for the wall remains. You cannot dissolve an obstacle by speaking words you do not believe. The power is not in the syllables, it is in the conviction behind them. This is why Shinn insisted that your word must be backed by faith. Faith is not hope. Hope says, "Maybe this will work." Faith says, "This is already done." Faith is the inner knowing that the law is operating. That cause has been set in motion. That effect must follow as surely as a seed must become a plant. When you speak with faith, you are not asking the universe to do something for you. You are announcing what is already true in the invisible realm, and you are commanding it to manifest in the visible. You are not a beggar. You are a legislator. You are not requesting change. You are decreeing it. Consider the implications of this. If your words are radioactive, if they carry the power to alter reality at the molecular level, then every word you speak is either building or destroying. Every complaint is an affirmation of lack. Every worry is a decree of limitation. Every time you say, "I can't afford this," or "I'll never find someone," or "This always happens to me," you are speaking with conviction, and the law is responding to your conviction by hardening those thoughts into circumstances. You are the opera singer, and you are shattering your own glass. But instead of shattering obstacles, you are shattering opportunities. Instead of dissolving walls, you are building them. Shinn taught that man's word is his wand. This is not poetry. This is instruction. A wand is a tool of direction. It points. It focuses. It channels power toward a specific target. When a magician waves a wand, he is not creating power. He is directing power that already exists. Your word is the same. The power is already present. Universal law, the creative principle, the substance from which all things are made, is already here, already responsive, already waiting for direction. When you speak, you are waving the wand. You are telling the substance what form to take. You are giving the law its marching orders. But here is the precision required. The wand must be pointed in one direction. If you wave it toward prosperity while your mind is focused on debt, the power scatters. If you decree health while visualizing sickness, the substance receives conflicting instructions and produces confusion. The wall stands because you are simultaneously commanding it to fall and commanding it to stand. Your mouth says one thing, your imagination says another. And the imagination always wins, because the imagination is the blueprint, and the law always builds according to the blueprint, not according to the words you speak to cover up what you really believe. This is why the Jericho Protocol requires more than words. It requires alignment. It requires that your spoken decree and your mental image be in perfect harmony, both tuned to the same frequency, both pointing in the same direction. When Joshua marched around Jericho, he did not march while worrying that the walls were too high. He did not shout while secretly believing the city was impregnable. He marched in silence, holding the inner image of victory. And when the moment came to shout, the shout was not hope. It was announcement. The walls fell because the frequency of faith met the frequency of fear, and fear could not stand. You are about to learn this protocol. You are about to understand why some people speak and mountains move, while others speak and nothing changes. The difference is not in the words. The difference is in the alignment between word and belief, between decree and image, between what is said and what is seen in the inner eye. Shinn called this speaking the word with realization. Realization means you see it as real before it appears. You see the wall as already fallen. You see the obstacle as already dissolved. And because you see it, because you hold that image with unwavering conviction, your words carry the frequency of truth, and truth shatters illusion the way light shatters darkness. Let this sink in. Your obstacle is not solid. It is not permanent. It is not stronger than you. It is a frozen thought, and you are the heat. You are the frequency that melts ice back to water. You are the note that shatters glass. You are the word that collapses walls. But you must understand the mechanism. You must see that this is law, not luck. It is science, not superstition. When you speak with conviction, you are not hoping the universe will listen. You are activating a principle as reliable as gravity, as predictable as mathematics. The law does not sometimes work, it always works. The question is whether you are working with it or against it. Shinn spent her life teaching this precision. She watched people exhaust themselves trying to overcome obstacles through physical effort, never realizing that the obstacle was a mental construct that could be dissolved by a mental command. She watched people pray for change while holding the image of the problem, effectively praying for the problem to continue. She watched people affirm abundance while speaking words of lack, wondering why their affirmations had no power. And she taught with the patience of a master engineer that the power is always present, but it must be directed with precision. The wand must point in one direction. The word and the image must match. The frequency must be pure. This is the foundation. This is the law upon which the Jericho Protocol is built. Your words are radioactive. Your obstacles are frozen thought. When you speak with conviction, backed by faith, aligned with the image of victory, you introduce a frequency that the obstacle cannot resist. It begins to vibrate. It begins to destabilize. And if you hold the frequency, if you do not waver, if you do not contaminate your decree with doubt or your image with fear, the wall must fall. Not because you are special, but because you are operating law. Not because you are lucky, but because you are precise. The system works. It has always worked. Now you will learn to work it. Every object has a resonant frequency. This is not mysticism, this is physics. A bridge, a building, a wine glass, a human cell, all vibrate at a specific rate. When an external force matches that frequency, the object vibrates in sympathy. And if the matching frequency is sustained, the vibration amplifies until the structure can no longer hold. In 1940, the Tacoma Narrows Bridge collapsed, not because of structural weakness, but because the wind matched its resonant frequency. A massive suspension bridge, designed to withstand enormous loads, was destroyed by invisible air moving at a specific rhythm. The engineers who built it did not account for resonance, and resonance destroyed what force could not. Your problem, the wall you face, has a resonant frequency. That frequency is fear. Fear of lack. Fear of rejection. Fear of failure. Fear of permanence. The wall exists because you have been vibrating at the frequency of fear, and the law, which is impersonal and responds only to vibration, has built a circumstance that matches that frequency. You did not intend to build the wall. You did not wake up one morning and decide to create an obstacle. But through worry, through doubt, through the constant repetition of thoughts and words aligned with fear, you set up a resonance, and the law responded by constructing a barrier that reflects your dominant vibration. The wall is not punishment. It is echo. It is the universe showing you the frequency you have been broadcasting. Now here is the precision of the Jericho Protocol. If fear built the wall, then faith will collapse it. This is not belief. This is mechanics. Faith and fear cannot coexist at the same frequency. They are opposing vibrations. When you introduce the frequency of faith into a situation built on fear, one of two things must happen. Either the faith is overwhelmed by the fear, or the fear is dissolved by the faith. The outcome depends entirely on which frequency you sustain. If you affirm faith for a moment but return to fear for an hour, fear wins. If you decree victory but spend your day rehearsing defeat, defeat wins. But if you hold the frequency of faith, if you sustain it through affirmation, through mental imagery, through action that assumes the wall is already gone, then fear cannot hold its form. The structure destabilizes, the wall cracks, and with continued pressure it collapses completely. Think of it as two tuning forks. If you strike a tuning fork tuned to the note of C, and you place it near another tuning fork also tuned to C, the second fork will begin to vibrate even though it was not struck. This is sympathetic resonance. The vibration of one object causes another object with the same natural frequency to vibrate in response. But if you place a tuning fork tuned to C next to a tuning fork tuned to G, nothing happens. The frequencies do not match, so there is no resonance, no transfer of energy. Your affirmation is the struck tuning fork. Your obstacle is the second fork. If your affirmation vibrates at the frequency of truth and your obstacle vibrates at the frequency of illusion, there is no resonance. The obstacle does not respond. But if you contaminate your affirmation with doubt, if you speak faith but feel fear, you have tuned your fork to the same note as the obstacle, and now you are reinforcing it, making it vibrate more strongly, making it more solid. This is why Shinn insisted that you cannot build with one hand and tear down with the other. You cannot affirm prosperity while worrying about bills. You cannot decree health while focusing on symptoms. You cannot command the wall to fall while secretly believing it is too strong. The law does not respond to your words, it responds to your conviction. If your conviction is split, if part of you believes in victory and part of you believes in defeat, the law receives mixed signals and produces mixed results. The wall stands because you are holding it in place with the frequency of your doubt, even as you try to dissolve it with the frequency of your words. Here is the unshakable logic. The wall is not made of matter, it is made of belief. It is a thought form that has been energized by emotion and repetition until it appears solid. But no matter how solid it appears, it is still just thought, and thought can be changed. The moment you change the thought, the moment you shift from the frequency of fear to the frequency of faith, the wall begins to dissolve. It does not dissolve instantly, because the old thought form has momentum. It has been reinforced for weeks or months or years, and it takes time for the new frequency to override the old. But if you hold the new frequency, if you refuse to return to the old vibration, the wall must fall. This is law. This is not hope or wishful thinking. This is cause and effect. Shinn compared this to a garden. If you plant seeds of fear, you will harvest a crop of obstacles. If you plant seeds of faith, you will harvest a crop of miracles. But you cannot plant both and expect only one to grow. You cannot spend your morning affirming abundance and your afternoon complaining about lack, and then wonder why lack persists. The garden grows what you plant, and you are planting with every word, every thought, every image you hold in your mind. The wall is the harvest of fear. The open path is the harvest of faith. You are the gardener, you choose the seeds. But here is where most people fail. They change their words, but not their images. They speak affirmations of health, but continue to visualize the disease. They decree financial freedom, but continue to see themselves as poor. They shout at the wall, but hold a mental picture of the wall standing firm. And because the image is the blueprint, and the law always builds according to the blueprint, the wall remains. The words have no power because they are not backed by the image. It is like trying to build a house while holding the blueprint for a prison. The builders follow the blueprint, not your verbal instructions. The law follows your mental image, not your spoken word, unless the spoken word and the mental image are aligned. This is the resonance disaster you must create. You must match the frequency of your desire so precisely, with such sustained intensity, that the frequency of your problem cannot hold. You must become the wind that matches the bridge's resonant frequency. You must become the note that shatters the glass. You must vibrate at the frequency of victory so consistently that the frequency of defeat destabilizes and collapses. This is not effort. This is focus. This is alignment. This is the precision of holding one thought, one image, one decree, without wavering, until the law has no choice but to manifest it. Shinn taught that the invisible always becomes visible. What you hold in consciousness must eventually appear in circumstance. This is not magic. This is the mechanics of manifestation. Consciousness is cause, circumstance is effect. If you want to change the effect, you must change the cause. You cannot change circumstance by manipulating circumstance. You must go to the level of consciousness, to the level of thought and belief and mental imagery, and make the change there. Once the change is made in consciousness, once the new frequency is established and sustained, the circumstance has no choice but to rearrange itself to match. The wall falls because the consciousness that built it has been replaced by a consciousness that sees only an open path. This is the foundation. This is the unshakable logic upon which the Jericho Protocol operates. Your problem has a frequency. Your solution has a frequency. When the frequency of the solution is sustained, the frequency of the problem cannot stand. The two are incompatible. One must yield, and the lower frequency always yields to the higher. Fear always yields to faith. Lack always yields to abundance. Sickness always yields to health. Not because you force it, but because you match the resonant frequency of what you desire and hold it until the old form collapses and the new form appears. This is law. This is science. This is the system that has always worked for those who understand it and apply it with precision. Now we move to the architecture, where you will learn the exact sequence of mental positions and spoken decrees that activate this law and bring the walls down. The required state for the Jericho Protocol is what Florence Scovel Shinn called the victorious attitude. This is not optimism. This is not positive thinking. This is not hoping for the best while preparing for the worst. The victorious attitude is the inner knowing that the battle is already won, that the wall has already fallen, that you are not fighting for victory, but moving through the aftermath of a victory that has already occurred in the invisible realm. You do not shout to try to make the wall fall. You shout because you know it cannot stand. This distinction is everything. It is the difference between a plea and a decree, between begging and commanding, between hoping the law will work and knowing the law is working. Consider the nature of a decree. When a king issues a decree, he does not wonder if it will be obeyed. He does not hope his subjects will comply. He speaks and his word becomes law, not because he is forcing anyone, but because he carries the authority of his position. His decree is not a request, it is an announcement of what is now true. The victorious attitude operates on this principle. When you decree the wall to fall, you are not asking the universe for permission. You are announcing what is already true in the realm of absolute truth, and you are commanding the visible realm to align with the invisible. You speak from the position of one who knows the outcome, not one who hopes for it. This attitude cannot be faked. You cannot pretend to have faith while secretly doubting. The law reads vibration, not performance. If you are trying to convince yourself that the wall will fall, you are admitting that you believe it might not, and that belief becomes the frequency you broadcast. The law responds to what you truly believe, not what you say you believe. This is why Shinn insisted that you must stand porter at the door of your thoughts. You must guard your consciousness the way a sentry guards a gate, refusing entry to any thought that contradicts your decree. If you affirm the wall is falling, but allow the thought "but it looks so solid" to enter, you have contaminated the frequency, and the wall stands. The victorious attitude is built on a specific understanding of time. In the realm of truth, in the dimension of absolute reality, your desire is already fulfilled. The wall is already gone. The obstacle is already dissolved. Time is a construct of the physical dimension, a way of organizing sequence and change. But in the realm of spirit, all possibilities exist simultaneously. When you decree the wall to fall, you are not creating something new. You are selecting from what already exists. You are tuning your consciousness to the frequency of the reality where the wall is gone, and as you hold that frequency, the physical dimension begins to rearrange itself to match. The wall falls not because you made it fall, but because you aligned with the version of reality where it has already fallen. This is why doubt is so destructive. Doubt is not just a lack of faith, it is active faith in the wrong outcome. When you doubt, you are tuning your consciousness to the frequency of the reality where the wall stands. You are selecting that version of reality and bringing it into your experience. Shinn would say you are demonstrating your doubt instead of demonstrating your faith. The law is neutral. It will manifest whatever you hold in consciousness with conviction. If you hold the wall with conviction, the wall appears. If you hold the open path with conviction, the open path appears. The law does not judge which is better. It simply responds to your dominant vibration. To establish the victorious attitude, you must first decide that the wall is already gone. This is not pretending. This is not denial. This is choosing which reality you will align with. In the realm of infinite possibility, both realities exist, the one where the wall stands and the one where the wall has fallen. You are not creating the reality where the wall is gone. You are acknowledging that it already exists and choosing to move into it. This choice is made not with words, but with the quality of your consciousness. You must feel the relief of the wall being gone. You must see yourself on the other side. You must move through your day as if the obstacle has already dissolved, because in the dimension that precedes physical manifestation, it has. This attitude is sustained through vigilance. Every time a thought of doubt arises, you must recognize it as a thought from the reality you are leaving, not the reality you are entering. You do not fight the doubt. You do not try to suppress it. You simply observe it and choose not to energize it. Shinn taught that you should meet every negative thought with a positive statement. If the thought arises, "The wall is too high," you immediately respond, "The wall is already fallen." If the thought arises, "This is taking too long," you respond, "Divine timing is perfect." You are not arguing with the thought. You are redirecting your consciousness back to the frequency of victory. The victorious attitude also requires that you stop monitoring the physical evidence. If you decree the wall to fall and then spend your day checking to see if it has moved, you are not in the victorious attitude. You are in the attitude of doubt disguised as vigilance. Shinn said, "Man must prepare for the thing he has asked for when there isn't the slightest sign of it in sight." This means you act as if the wall is gone before you see any evidence that it is gone. You make plans that assume the obstacle is dissolved. You take actions that would only make sense if the path were clear. This is not recklessness. This is faith in action. You are proving to the law that you believe your decree, and the law responds to that proof by manifesting the circumstance that matches your belief. Here is the precision required. The victorious attitude is not emotional excitement. Excitement is often a sign of doubt because it indicates surprise that something might actually work. The victorious attitude is calm certainty. It is the quiet knowing that the law is operating, that cause has been set in motion, that effect must follow. Shinn compared it to planting a seed. When you plant a seed, you do not dig it up every day to see if it is growing. You do not worry that it might not grow. You simply water it and wait, knowing that the law of growth is operating beneath the surface, and in due time, the plant will appear. The victorious attitude treats your decree the same way. You speak the word, you hold the image, and you wait with calm certainty. knowing that the invisible law is rearranging circumstances to match your command. This attitude also requires that you give thanks before you see the result. Gratitude is the frequency of receiving. When you give thanks for the wall being gone before you see it gone, you are vibrating at the frequency of one who has already received. The law reads that frequency and responds by bringing the manifestation into the visible. But if you wait to give thanks until after you see the result, you are vibrating at the frequency of one who has not yet received, and the law keeps you in that state. Shinn taught, "The grateful heart is always close to the creative forces of the universe. Gratitude is not a response to manifestation, it is the cause of manifestation. You give thanks, and then the thing appears, because your gratitude has tuned you to the frequency of having." The victorious attitude is the mental position from which the Jericho Protocol is executed. Without it, the protocol is just words and actions with no power behind them. With it, every word you speak carries the frequency of truth, and every action you take is a command to the law. You are not trying to make something happen. You are announcing what has already happened in the invisible and commanding it to appear in the visible. You are not hoping the wall will fall. You know it has already fallen, and you are simply waiting for the physical dimension to catch up with the spiritual reality you have decreed. This is the victorious attitude. This is the consciousness of the Master. This is the state from which walls crumble and obstacles dissolve without you lifting a finger. Now we move to the execution, where you will learn the exact sequence of the Jericho Protocol. The Jericho Protocol consists of 3 precise steps: the march, the decree, and the advance. Each step serves a specific function in the process of collapsing the wall. Each step must be executed with the victorious attitude, or the protocol becomes empty ritual. But when executed correctly, with consciousness aligned to the frequency of victory, this protocol has the power to dissolve obstacles that have stood for years. Florence Scovel Shinn observed this pattern in the biblical account of Jericho and decoded it as a metaphysical instruction manual. The Israelites did not attack the walls. They did not try to climb them or break them down. They marched in silence, and then they shouted, and the walls fell. This is the pattern. This is the system. Step 1 is the march, and its function is indifference. Before you shout, before you decree, before you take any action against the wall, you must first demonstrate that you are not afraid of it. Fear is what holds the wall in place. Fear is the frequency that built it. If you approach the wall with fear, if you see it as powerful and yourself as weak, you are reinforcing its structure with every glance. The march is the act of looking at the problem and doing absolutely nothing. You do not worry. You do not strategize. You do not try to fix it. You simply observe it with detachment, as if it were a temporary inconvenience that will soon be gone. This is not denial. This is strategic indifference. You are showing the problem that you do not grant it power over your peace. The march in the biblical account lasted 7 days. The Israelites walked around the city once each day, saying nothing, doing nothing, simply circling the walls in silence. Metaphysically, this represents a period of mental preparation, a time during which you refuse to react to the problem. How long is your march? That depends on how deeply the fear is rooted. For some obstacles, a day of indifference is enough. For others, you may need to march for a week, maintaining your inner calm while the outer circumstance remains unchanged. The key is that, during the march, you do not speak about the problem. You do not complain. You do not explain to others how difficult it is. You hold your peace, you guard your words, you refuse to energize the wall with your attention. This is harder than it sounds. The mind wants to solve problems. The ego wants to take action. The fear wants to be expressed. But Shinn taught that premature action is often the enemy of manifestation. If you act from fear, you reinforce the problem. If you act from faith, you dissolve it. The march is the time during which you shift from fear to faith, from panic to peace, from seeing the wall as solid to seeing it as already fallen. During the march, you are not passive. You are actively holding a mental position. You are actively refusing to vibrate at the frequency of the problem. You are actively tuning your consciousness to the frequency of the solution. During the march, you also practice the discipline of redirecting your thoughts. Every time your mind returns to the problem, You gently redirect it to the solution. Every time you feel the urge to worry, you replace the worry with an affirmation. Shinn provided many affirmations for this purpose, and one of the most powerful for the Jericho Protocol is this: "The walls of lack and delay now crumble away, and I enter my promised land under grace." You do not shout this affirmation during the march. You hold it silently in your consciousness. You let it become the background frequency of your mind. You let it replace the old frequency of fear with the new frequency of faith. The march also serves another function. It builds power. Think of it as drawing back a bowstring. The longer you hold the string in tension, the more force is stored. And when you release it, the arrow flies with tremendous speed. The march is the time of tension, the time during which you are holding the victorious attitude, while the outer circumstance has not yet changed. This creates a pressure, a building of energy, and when the time comes to release that energy through the decree, it is released with power. If you skip the march, if you go straight to the decree without first establishing indifference and building inner conviction, your decree will lack force. It will be hope, not command. It will be plea, not announcement. Step 2 is the decree, and its function is the trumpet. After the march, after the period of silence and inner preparation, comes the moment of the shout. In the biblical account, on the 7th day, the Israelites marched around the city 7 times. And then the priests blew the trumpets, and the people shouted, and the walls fell. Metaphysically, the trumpet represents the spoken word. The shout represents the decree spoken with conviction. This is not volume. You do not need to yell. You need to speak with authority. You need to speak from the victorious attitude, from the knowing that the wall has already fallen, and you are simply announcing it to the physical dimension. Shinn's formula for the decree is precise. The walls of lack and delay now crumble away, and I enter my promised land under grace. Let us break this down. The walls of lack and delay names the obstacle. You are not being vague. You are identifying the specific barrier you are addressing. Now crumble away is the command. You are not asking. You are decreeing. The word now indicates immediacy. You are not saying someday or eventually. You are saying now, which aligns your consciousness with the present moment, the only moment in which the law can operate. I enter my promised land is the claim. You are stating what is on the other side of the wall. You are declaring your destination. Under grace is the protection. It means in a perfect way, without harm, in divine timing. It prevents the manifestation from coming through struggle or at the expense of others. When you speak this decree, you must speak it out loud. The spoken word carries power that the silent thought does not. Sound is vibration made audible. When you speak, you are sending a vibration into the atmosphere, and that vibration affects the molecular structure of your environment. Shinn taught that words are molds or molds, into which the universal substance pours itself. When you speak the decree, you are creating a mold in the shape of your desire, and the law fills that mold with substance, and the substance hardens into circumstance. But the mold must be clear. The words must be precise. The conviction must be absolute. As you speak the decree, you must also feel it. Emotion is the amplifier of thought. A thought without emotion is weak. A thought backed by emotion is powerful. But the emotion must match the decree. If you speak words of victory while feeling fear, the fear cancels the words. The emotion you want is the emotion of relief, of gratitude, of calm certainty. Feel the relief of the wall being gone. Feel the gratitude for the open path. Feel the certainty that the law is operating. Let that feeling fill your chest as you speak, and let the vibration of that feeling go out with your words. You may speak the decree once, or you may speak it multiple times. Shinn taught that sometimes a single decree is enough, if it is spoken with absolute conviction. Other times, the decree must be repeated daily until the inner knowing is established. The repetition is not because the law needs to hear it multiple times. The repetition is because you need to hear it multiple times. Each repetition reinforces the new frequency, weakens the old frequency, and builds the inner conviction that allows the manifestation to appear. Repeat the decree until you feel a shift, until you feel the burden lift, until you know in your core that the wall has fallen, even if you do not yet see the evidence. Step 3 is the advance, and its function is the action. After the decree, you must move forward. You must do something that proves the wall is gone. This is not the action of trying to make it fall. This is the action of one who knows it has already fallen. If the wall was lack and you have decreed abundance, you must now act abundant. Buy something small that you would not have bought before. Give something away. Make a financial decision that assumes the money is coming. If the wall was sickness and you have decreed health, you must now act healthy. Make a plan for a trip. Schedule an activity that requires energy. Move as if the body is already well. If the wall was loneliness and you have decreed connection, you must now act connected. Reach out to someone, make plans, behave as if the relationship is already on its way. The advance is the proof of your faith. Shinn said, "Faith without works is dead." The work is not the work of effort. It is the work of alignment. You are aligning your actions with your decree. You are proving to the law that you believe what you have spoken. And the law, reading your actions, responds by manifesting the circumstance that matches those actions. If you decree abundance but continue to act poor, the law manifests poverty. If you decree health but continue to act sick, the law manifests sickness. Your actions are a more powerful statement of belief than your words, and the law always responds to what you truly believe, not what you say you believe. The advance must be taken immediately after the decree. Do not wait for evidence. Do not wait for confirmation. Do not wait until you feel ready. The advance is what creates the evidence. Shinn taught, man must prepare for the thing he has asked for when there isn't the slightest sign of it in sight. Prepare means act. If you have decreed a new home, start packing. If you have decreed a new job, update your resume. If you have decreed healing, throw away the medicine that represents the old condition. These actions are not reckless. They are faith made visible. They are the bridge between the invisible decree and the visible manifestation. The advance also serves to anchor the new frequency. When you take an action that assumes the wall is gone, you are sending a powerful message to your subconscious mind. The subconscious does not reason. It simply accepts what you show it. If you show it actions of lack, it produces lack. If you show it actions of abundance, it produces abundance. The advance is how you reprogram the subconscious, how you replace the old pattern with the new pattern, how you shift from the frequency of the problem to the frequency of the solution. Each action you take in faith weakens the old pattern and strengthens the new until the new pattern becomes dominant and the circumstance shifts to match. This is the Jericho Protocol, the march of indifference, the decree of command, the advance of faith. 3 steps, each essential, each precise. When executed with the victorious attitude, this protocol collapses walls that have stood for years. It dissolves obstacles that seemed permanent. It opens paths that appeared blocked, not because you forced anything, but because you aligned with law, because you vibrated at the frequency of victory, because you spoke with the authority of one who knows the outcome. The walls of Jericho fell not because the Israelites were strong, but because they followed the protocol. Your walls will fall for the same reason. Now we move to the refinement, where you will learn the fatal mistakes that cause most people to fail, even when they follow the steps. The fatal mistake that causes the Jericho Protocol to fail is what Florence Scovel Shinn called the silent doubt. This is the hook reveal, the trap that was promised in part 1. You can march with perfect indifference. You can shout your decree with conviction. You can advance with faith. But if underneath all of this, you are holding a silent image of the wall still standing, you are reinforcing the wall instead of breaking it. The silent doubt is not spoken. It is not even conscious most of the time. It is the image you hold in your mind while you are affirming the opposite with your words. And because the image is the blueprint, and the law always builds according to the blueprint, the wall remains. Mistake number 1 is visualizing the stones. While you are affirming I am wealthy, are you visualizing the empty bank account? While you are decreeing I am healthy, are you seeing the symptoms? While you are commanding the wall is falling, are you imagining it standing firm? Shinn said, you cannot build with one hand and tear down with the other. Your mental image must match your spoken word. If you shout victory but see defeat, the wall stands firm. This is not a failure of the protocol. This is a failure of alignment. The protocol works, but you are working against it with your imagination. The reason this happens is that most people are more practiced at visualizing problems than visualizing solutions. You have spent years looking at the wall, thinking about the wall, worrying about the wall. The image of the wall is deeply grooved into your consciousness. When you begin the protocol, when you start to affirm and decree, the old image does not disappear automatically. It lingers, it plays in the background. And unless you consciously replace it with a new image, it continues to be the blueprint that the law follows. You are speaking new words, but you are holding the old blueprint, and the law builds according to the blueprint, not the words. Here is the precision required. Every time you speak your decree, you must simultaneously see the desired outcome. If you decree, the walls of lack and delay now crumble away, you must see yourself on the other side of the wall. You must see the bank account full. You must see the body well. You must see the relationship thriving. You must see the open path. The image must be vivid. It must be detailed. It must feel real. And you must hold that image while you speak, so that the words and the image are aligned, so that you are giving the law a single clear instruction instead of conflicting instructions. This requires vigilance. Shinn called it standing porter at the door of thought. A porter is a gatekeeper. He stands at the entrance and decides who gets in and who stays out. You must become the porter of your imagination. Every time an image of the problem tries to enter, you must refuse it entry. You do not fight it. You do not resist it. You simply replace it. The moment you notice yourself visualizing the wall, you gently redirect your imagination to visualize the open path. The moment you catch yourself seeing lack, you replace it with the image of abundance. This is not suppression. This is substitution. You are training your imagination to default to the new image instead of the old. Most people fail here because they think affirmations alone are enough. They speak the words but never change the image. They decree abundance while continuing to see themselves as poor. They command health while continuing to focus on the disease, and then they wonder why nothing changes. Shinn would say they are demonstrating their doubt instead of demonstrating their faith. The law does not respond to your words. It responds to your dominant mental image. If the dominant image is the problem persists. If the dominant image is the solution appears. Your job is to make the image of the solution more dominant than the image of the problem. Here is a technique Shinn taught for replacing the image. When you catch yourself visualizing the problem, immediately say, "That is the old picture. I now see the new picture." Then consciously create the image of the desired outcome. See it clearly. Feel it deeply. Hold it for as long as you can. The more often you do this, the weaker the old image becomes and the stronger the new image becomes. Eventually, the new image becomes automatic. You no longer have to force it. It becomes your default vision, and when that happens, the law has no choice but to manifest it because the blueprint has been changed. Mistake number 2 is complaining about the debris. Sometimes when a wall crumbles, it makes a mess. Things might get chaotic for a day before they clear up. The old circumstance might seem to get worse before it gets better. Money might get tighter before the abundance flows. Symptoms might flare before the healing manifests. Relationships might get tense before the harmony arrives. This is not a sign that the protocol failed. This is a sign that the wall is collapsing. When a structure falls, there is dust, there is noise, there is temporary chaos. If you panic during this phase, if you interpret the chaos as failure, you will abandon the protocol just before it completes. You will rebuild the wall with your fear. Shinn taught that this phase is a test of faith. The law is watching to see if you will hold your conviction when the outer appearance contradicts your decree. Most people fail this test. They decree abundance, and then a bill arrives, and they panic. They decree health, and then the symptoms worsen, and they give up. They decree the wall to fall, and then the wall seems to get higher, and they conclude the protocol does not work. But the wall is not getting higher. The wall is falling. The appearance of increased difficulty is often the death rattle of the old condition. It is the last surge of energy before the pattern collapses completely. The key during this phase is to hold your peace. Do not react to the chaos. Do not complain about the debris. Do not speak words that contradict your decree. If a bill arrives after you have decreed abundance, do not say, "I knew this wouldn't work." Say, "This is the old condition clearing out. My abundance is on its way." If symptoms worsen after you have decreed health, do not say, "I'm getting worse," and say, "This is the disease leaving my body. My healing is manifesting." You are not denying the appearance. You are reinterpreting it. You are refusing to give it the meaning of failure, and instead giving it the meaning of transition. Shinn called this the wilderness experience. In the biblical story, the Israelites had to wander in the wilderness for 40 years before they could enter the promised land. Metaphysically, the wilderness is the gap between the decree and the manifestation, the time during which the old is dying and the new is being born. It is uncomfortable. It requires faith. It tests your conviction. But if you hold steady, if you refuse to turn back, if you keep your eyes on the promised land instead of on the wilderness, you will emerge on the other side. The wall will fall, the path will open, the manifestation will appear. But you must endure the wilderness without losing faith. During the wilderness, you must also resist the temptation to explain your situation to others. When you explain, you are rehearsing the problem. You are speaking it into existence again. You are vibrating at the frequency of the obstacle instead of the frequency of the solution. Shinn taught that you should keep your decrees private. Do not tell others what you are doing. Do not seek their validation or their sympathy. Simply hold your inner knowing and let the outer world catch up in its own time. The moment you start explaining why things are difficult, you have abandoned the victorious attitude and returned to the frequency of defeat. Here is the final aspect of mistake number 2. Do not look back at the rubble once the wall has fallen. When the manifestation appears, when the obstacle is dissolved, when the path is clear, do not spend time analyzing how difficult it was or how long it took. Do not tell the story of the struggle. Move forward. Give thanks. Keep walking. Looking back at the rubble is a form of doubt. It suggests that you are surprised the wall fell, that you did not really believe it would. The victorious attitude does not look back. It moves forward with calm certainty, already focused on the next demonstration, already aligned with the next level of manifestation. The wall fell because it had to fall. The law operated because the law always operates. There is nothing to analyze. There is only gratitude and forward motion. Florence Scovel Shinn provided a master's tip that encapsulates the entire Jericho Protocol in a single sentence. Man must prepare for the thing he has asked for when there isn't the slightest sign of it in sight. This is the essence of faith. This is the definition of the victorious attitude. You prepare not after you see the evidence, but before. You act not when it is safe, but when it requires courage. You move not when the path is clear, but when the path is still blocked, because your movement is what clears it. Preparation is the proof of faith, and faith is the frequency that collapses walls. What does it mean to prepare? It means you act as if the thing you have decreed is already on its way. If you have decreed a new home, you start packing. You research moving companies. You clear out the clutter from your current space. You do not wait until you have the money or the opportunity. You prepare now while there is no sign of it, because your preparation is a statement to the law that you believe. And the law, reading your actions, responds by manifesting the circumstance that matches your belief. If you wait to prepare until you see the evidence, you are telling the law that you do not believe, and the law manifests your doubt. Shinn told the story of a woman who wanted to marry but saw no prospects. Shinn instructed her to prepare for the husband. The woman bought a double bed to replace her single bed. She cleared space in her closet for a man's clothes. She set the table for two, even though she ate alone. She acted as if the husband were already on his way. Within months, she met a man, and they married. The marriage manifested not because she wished for it, but because she prepared for it. Her actions were a decree more powerful than words. She showed the law what she believed, and the law manifested what she believed. This principle applies to every area of life. If you have decreed abundance, start giving. You cannot give from lack, so the act of giving is a statement that you have. If you have decreed health, start moving your body as if it were well. You cannot move with vitality if you believe you are sick, so the act of moving is a statement that you are healed. If you have decreed success, start dressing for success. Start speaking with the confidence of one who has already achieved. Start making plans that assume the success is coming. Every action you take in preparation is a brick removed from the wall. Every action of faith weakens the structure of doubt until the structure collapses completely. Shinn also taught the importance of acting as if. This is not pretending. This is alignment. When you act as if the wall is gone, you are aligning your behavior with your decree. You are closing the gap between what you say and what you do. And because the subconscious mind learns through repetition of action, every time you act as if, you are reprogramming the subconscious to accept the new reality. Eventually, the subconscious accepts it fully, and when the subconscious accepts it, the outer world has no choice but to reflect it. The wall falls because the inner blueprint has been changed, and the outer always conforms to the inner. Another master's tip from Shinn is this. The game of life is a game of boomerangs. Man's thoughts, deeds, and words return to him sooner or later, with astounding accuracy. This is the law of cause and effect applied to the Jericho Protocol. Every thought you think about the wall, every word you speak about the obstacle, every action you take in relation to the problem, is a boomerang that will return to you. If you think thoughts of defeat, defeat returns. If you speak words of lack, lack returns. If you act from fear, fear returns. But if you think thoughts of victory, victory returns. If you speak words of abundance, abundance returns. If you act from faith, faith returns. The wall you face is the boomerang of past thoughts, words, and actions. The open path you desire is the boomerang of present thoughts, words, and actions aligned with faith. This means that the Jericho Protocol is not just about collapsing one wall. It is about learning to live in a way that prevents walls from forming in the first place. Once you understand that your words are radioactive, that your thoughts are blueprints, that your actions are decrees, you become conscious of what you are creating moment by moment. You stop speaking carelessly. You stop thinking negatively. You stop acting from fear. You become deliberate. You become precise. You become a master of the law instead of a victim of circumstance. And when you live this way, walls do not form, because you are no longer vibrating at the frequency that builds them. Shinn's final master's tip is about timing. She taught that divine timing is perfect. This means that the wall will fall when the law has completed its work, not when you think it should fall. Your job is not to force the timing. Your job is to hold the frequency and trust the process. If you become impatient, if you start to doubt because the manifestation has not appeared as quickly as you wanted, you contaminate the frequency and delay the manifestation. Patience is not passive waiting. Patience is active trust. It is the knowing that the law is operating beneath the surface, rearranging circumstances, aligning people and events, preparing the path. And when the preparation is complete, the wall falls suddenly, often from a direction you did not expect. This is why Shinn said, man can only receive what he sees himself receiving. If you see yourself receiving slowly and with difficulty, that is what you receive. If you see yourself receiving easily and quickly, that is what you receive. The timing is not fixed. The timing is determined by your consciousness. If you hold the image of immediate manifestation with unwavering faith, the manifestation can appear immediately. But if you hold the image of delay, if you believe it will take time, then it takes time. The law is neutral. It gives you what you believe. So believe in perfect timing, and perfect timing is what you will experience. Believe in immediate manifestation, and immediate manifestation becomes possible. The wall falls when you are ready for it to fall, and you become ready by holding the frequency of readiness without wavering. The Jericho Protocol is not mysticism. It is physics. It is the practical application of a principle that science has confirmed: resonance. In 1940, the Tacoma Narrows Bridge in Washington state collapsed. This bridge was a marvel of engineering, a massive suspension structure designed to withstand enormous loads. But on November 7th, a moderate wind began to blow, and the wind matched the bridge's natural frequency. The bridge began to oscillate. The oscillations grew larger and larger until the structure could no longer hold, and the bridge tore itself apart. Engineers watched in horror as a massive bridge was destroyed not by force, but by resonance. The wind was not strong. The wind was precise. It matched the frequency. and the frequency destroyed what force could not. This is the resonance disaster, and it is the scientific validation of the Jericho Protocol. Your obstacle, your wall, is a structure vibrating at a specific frequency. That frequency is fear, doubt, lack, limitation. When you introduce a matching frequency, the structure resonates. But when you introduce an opposing frequency, a higher frequency, the structure destabilizes. Faith is a higher frequency than fear. Abundance is a higher frequency than lack. Health is a higher frequency than sickness. When you sustain the higher frequency through affirmation, through mental imagery, through action, the lower frequency cannot hold. The structure of the obstacle begins to vibrate. It begins to crack. And if you hold the higher frequency without wavering, the structure collapses completely. This is not magic. This is mechanics. The universe operates on vibration. Everything that exists is vibrating at a specific rate. Solid matter is simply energy vibrating slowly. Thought is energy vibrating quickly. When you think, you set up a vibration in the invisible realm. When you speak, you amplify that vibration. When you act, you anchor that vibration in the physical realm. The obstacle you face is a vibration that has been amplified and anchored through repetition. You thought about the problem. You spoke about the problem, you acted from the problem, and the problem solidified. Now you must reverse the process. You must think about the solution, speak about the solution, act from the solution, and the solution will solidify while the problem dissolves. Florence Scovel Shinn understood this principle long before quantum physics gave it a name. She taught that thoughts are things, and that words are molds into which the universal substance pours itself. She was describing vibration and resonance in metaphysical language. The thought is the vibration. The word is the amplification. The action is the anchoring. When all three are aligned, when thought, word, and action all vibrate at the same frequency, the law has no choice but to manifest the corresponding circumstance. This is why the Jericho Protocol requires alignment. If your thought is fear but your word is faith, the vibrations cancel each other out. If your word is abundance but your action is lack, the manifestation is delayed. But when thought, word, and action all align at the frequency of the desired outcome, the manifestation is inevitable. The Tacoma Narrows Bridge collapsed because the engineers did not account for resonance. They designed for static loads and dynamic loads, but they did not design for the possibility that the wind could match the bridge's natural frequency. When it did, the bridge had no defense. It vibrated itself to destruction. Your obstacle is the same. It has no defense against the frequency of faith. It can withstand your worry. It can withstand your effort. It can even withstand your hope. But it cannot withstand your conviction. When you vibrate at the frequency of absolute knowing, when you hold that frequency with unwavering consistency, the obstacle has no choice but to collapse. This is not because you are powerful. This is because the law is powerful, and you have learned to operate the law with precision. Consider another example from physics, the phenomenon of sympathetic resonance. If you place two tuning forks tuned to the same note near each other and strike one, the other will begin to vibrate even though it was not touched. The vibration of the first fork causes the second fork to resonate. This is the principle behind the Jericho Protocol. When you vibrate at the frequency of your desire, you cause the universal substance to resonate with that frequency, and the substance rearranges itself to match. You do not have to touch the wall. You do not have to force anything. You simply vibrate at the frequency of the open path, and the substance responds by creating the open path. The wall dissolves because the substance that was holding it in the form of an obstacle is now being reorganized into the form of a solution. This is why Shinn insisted that you must stand porter at the door of thought. Every thought that enters your consciousness sets up a vibration. If you allow thoughts of defeat to enter, you are setting up the vibration of defeat, and the substance resonates with that vibration and produces more defeat. If you guard the door and allow only thoughts of victory to enter, you set up the vibration of victory, and the substance resonates with that vibration and produces victory. You are not controlling the substance. You are directing it. You are not forcing outcomes. You are selecting frequencies. And the frequency you select determines the form the substance takes. The scientific principle of resonance also explains why some people can speak affirmations for years without seeing results. They are speaking the words, but they are not vibrating at the frequency of the words. The words say abundance, but the inner vibration is lack. The words say health, but the inner vibration is sickness. The words say victory, but the inner vibration is defeat. There is no resonance between the spoken word and the inner state, so the substance receives conflicting signals and produces confusion. The wall stands because the person is simultaneously trying to collapse it and trying to maintain it. The vibrations cancel each other out and nothing changes. The solution is alignment. You must bring your inner vibration into alignment with your spoken word. You must feel the abundance you are affirming. You must see the health you are decreeing. You must know the victory you are commanding. When the inner state and the outer word match, when the vibration is pure and consistent, the substance has clear instructions. It resonates with your frequency. It amplifies your signal, and it manifests the circumstance that matches your vibration. This is the science of the Jericho Protocol. This is why it works. This is why the walls must fall when you apply the principle correctly. Shinn also taught that the law is impersonal. It does not judge whether your desire is good or bad, worthy or unworthy. It simply responds to your vibration. If you vibrate lack, it gives you lack. If you vibrate abundance, it gives you abundance. This is why you must be conscious of what you are vibrating. You cannot afford to vibrate carelessly. Every moment you are broadcasting a signal, and the law is responding to that signal. If you want to change what you are receiving, you must change what you are broadcasting. This is not punishment. This is precision. The law is a perfect mirror. It shows you what you are vibrating. If you do not like what you see, change your vibration. The resonance disaster of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge is a perfect metaphor for the Jericho Protocol. A massive structure, seemingly solid and permanent, was destroyed by invisible air moving at a specific rhythm. The bridge did not stand a chance once the resonance was established. Your obstacle is the same. It seems solid. Sand seems permanent, but it is just a structure vibrating at a specific frequency. And when you introduce the frequency of faith, sustained and amplified through thought, word, and action, the structure cannot hold. It vibrates, it cracks, it collapses. Not because you forced it, but because you match the resonant frequency of its destruction. This is the science. This is the system. This is why the walls of Jericho fell. And this is why your walls will fall when you apply the same principle with the same precision. The final point of validation from physics is this: energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed. Your obstacle is not solid matter. It is energy in a particular form. When you apply the Jericho Protocol, you are not destroying the obstacle. You are transforming it. The energy that was locked in the form of a problem is released and reorganized into the form of a solution. The wall does not disappear. It transforms into an open path. The lack does not vanish. It transforms into abundance. The sickness does not cease to exist. It transforms into health. You are not fighting against something, you are transforming something. And transformation happens through resonance, through the introduction of a higher frequency that causes the lower frequency to reorganize itself into a higher form. This is the validation. This is the proof that the Jericho Protocol is not wishful thinking or spiritual fantasy. It is the application of universal principles that science has confirmed. Resonance is real, vibration is real, frequency is real. And when you learn to work with these principles consciously, deliberately, precisely, you become a master of manifestation. You become the one who speaks and watches walls crumble. You become the one who decrees and watches paths open. You become the one who vibrates at the frequency of victory and watches the universe rearrange itself to match. This is your power. This is your inheritance. This is the science of sacred logic. Let me tell you the story of a woman who needed money by a certain date. The amount was specific. The date was fixed. There was no visible way for the money to come. Her logical mind told her it was impossible. She had exhausted all the obvious options. She had asked everyone she knew. She had applied for loans and been denied. The wall of lack stood before her, solid and unmovable, and the deadline was approaching. She came to Florence Scovel Shinn in desperation, and Shinn taught her the Jericho Protocol. Shinn told her to stop worrying, to stop trying to figure out how the money would come, and to simply decree that God's supply was at hand. The woman began the march. For several days she looked at her situation and did absolutely nothing. She did not panic. She did not scheme. She did not complain. She simply held the inner image of the money arriving and refused to energize the fear. Then she spoke the decree. The walls of lack and delay now crumble away, and I enter my promised land under grace. God's supply is at hand, and I receive it now in perfect ways. She spoke this decree every morning and every night. She spoke it with conviction, from the victorious attitude, knowing that the law was operating even though she saw no evidence. Then she took the advance. She acted as if the money were already on its way. She made plans that assumed the bill would be paid. She gave a small amount to charity, proving to the law that she believed in abundance. She refused to speak words of lack. When friends asked how she would pay the bill, she simply said, "It's taken care of," and changed the subject. She was not lying. She was speaking from the reality she had decreed, the reality that existed in the invisible realm and was making its way to the visible. She held this frequency for days, while the outer circumstance showed no change. The deadline approached, and still there was no sign of the money. On the final day, the day the payment was due, she received a phone call. It was a cousin she had not spoken to in 20 years. The cousin explained that he had been going through old papers and found a record of a loan she had given him decades ago. He had forgotten about it. She had forgotten about it. But now, feeling convicted, he wanted to repay it. The amount he owed was the exact amount she needed, down to the dollar. He sent the money that day, and she paid the bill on time. The wall did not just open. It dissolved from a direction she never expected. She had not thought of this cousin. She had not remembered the loan. The law found a way that her logical mind could never have conceived. This is how the Jericho Protocol works. You do not need to know how the wall will fall. You do not need to figure out the path. Your job is to hold the frequency and let the law do the work. The law is infinitely intelligent. It knows every possible route to your desire. It can arrange circumstances, move people, create opportunities in ways that your limited human mind cannot imagine. But it can only work through the frequency you are broadcasting. If you broadcast lack, it finds ways to bring you lack. If you broadcast abundance, it finds ways to bring you abundance. The woman broadcast abundance through her decree, her image, and her action, and the law responded by manifesting abundance from a source she had completely forgotten. This story illustrates another principle Shinn taught. Your good is not in people, it is in God. The woman could have wasted her energy trying to convince specific people to lend her money. She could have begged, manipulated, or worried about who might help her. But Shinn taught her to release the how and the who, and simply decree that the supply was at hand. By releasing attachment to specific sources, she allowed the law to work through any channel. The cousin was just the channel. The source was the law itself, the infinite substance that takes form according to the frequency you hold. When you stop trying to control the channel and simply hold the frequency, the law finds the perfect channel, often one you never would have thought of. The woman's story also demonstrates the importance of holding the frequency until the manifestation appears. She did not give up when days passed with no sign of the money. She did not panic when the deadline approached. She held her peace. She maintained the victorious attitude. She trusted the law. And on the final day, at the final hour, the manifestation appeared. Shinn called this the 11th hour miracle. The law often waits until the last possible moment to manifest, not to test you, but because the circumstances are still being arranged. Your job is to hold the frequency without wavering, trusting that the law is working even when you see no evidence. Another aspect of this story is the principle of under grace. The woman decreed that the money would come under grace, meaning in a perfect way, without harm to anyone. The cousin was not harmed by repaying the loan. In fact, he felt relief at clearing his conscience. The woman was not harmed by receiving it. She received exactly what she needed, no more and no less. This is the protection of the phrase, under grace. It ensures that the manifestation comes through divine channels, in divine timing, in a way that blesses everyone involved. Without this phrase, the manifestation might come through struggle or at someone else's expense. With it, the manifestation is harmonious and perfect. This story is not unique. Shinn documented dozens of similar cases throughout her career. People who needed homes and received them from unexpected sources. People who needed healing and were cured through methods they had never heard of. People who needed relationships and met their perfect partner in impossible circumstances. In every case, the pattern was the same. They decreed, they held the frequency, they acted in faith, and the law responded by manifesting the desire from a direction they did not anticipate. The wall fell not because they forced it, but because they vibrated it to dust through the precision of their consciousness. The lesson here is that you do not need to see the path. You do not need to know how your desire will manifest. You simply need to hold the frequency of the desire with unwavering conviction, and the law will find the way. Your logical mind is limited. It can only see a few possibilities, but the law is unlimited. It sees infinite possibilities. When you release your limited vision and trust the unlimited intelligence of the law, you open yourself to miracles, to manifestations that appear impossible, to walls that crumble from directions you never imagined. This is the power of the Jericho Protocol. This is the validation that it works. This is the proof that when you align with law, the law moves heaven and earth to bring you what you have decreed. We have journeyed through the foundation, the architecture, the refinement, and the validation. Now we arrive at the synthesis, the place where all the principles converge into a single truth. No barrier is solid. Every wall you face, every obstacle that blocks your path, every limitation that defines your life is nothing more than a thought form that has been energized into appearance. It looks solid. It feels permanent. Your senses tell you it is real. But Florence Scovel Shinn revealed that the physical world is the last stage of a process that begins in consciousness. And what consciousness has created, consciousness can dissolve. The wall is not made of matter. It is made of belief. And belief can be changed in an instant. The power to change belief lies in the word. Your word is your wand. It is the tool through which you direct the universal substance, the creative principle, the law that governs all manifestation. When you speak with conviction, backed by faith, aligned with the image of your desire, you are not hoping for change. You are commanding it. You are not asking the universe for permission. You are announcing what is already true in the invisible realm and decreeing its appearance in the visible. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. You are aligning with the truth that you are a center of divine consciousness, that you have been given dominion over your world, that your word carries the power to shape reality. The Jericho Protocol is the systematic application of this power. The march teaches you indifference, the ability to look at a problem without fear. The decree teaches you authority, the ability to speak with conviction. The advance teaches you faith in action, the ability to move as if the wall is already gone. When these three steps are executed with the victorious attitude, with thought, word, and action aligned at the frequency of the desired outcome, the wall must fall. Not because you are special, but because you are operating law. Not because you are lucky, but because you are precise. The law is impersonal. It works for anyone who applies it correctly. It worked for the Israelites at Jericho. It worked for the woman who needed money. It will work for you. The synthesis of power is this. You are not separate from the creative principle. You are an expression of it. The same intelligence that built galaxies and orchestrates the movement of planets is operating through you. When you decree, it is not your small human self speaking. It is the divine speaking through you. When you hold an image in your mind, it is not just imagination. It is the blueprint from which the law builds. When you act in faith, it is not recklessness. It is cooperation with the invisible forces that are arranging circumstances to match your consciousness. You are not alone in this. You are backed by the infinite power of the universe, and that power moves through you the moment you align with it, through thought, word, and action. This is why Shinn taught that there are no obstacles, only opportunities for demonstration. Every wall you face is an invitation to prove the law. Every limitation is a chance to show that consciousness is greater than circumstance. Every impossible situation is a platform for a miracle. When you understand this, you stop seeing problems as problems. You start seeing them as assignments, as tests of your mastery, as opportunities to vibrate at a higher frequency and watch the lower frequency collapse. The wall is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It is showing you where your consciousness needs to rise, where your faith needs to deepen, where your conviction needs to strengthen. And when you meet the challenge, when you hold the frequency without wavering, the wall falls and you emerge stronger, wiser, more aligned with your power. You have been waiting for the wall to move. You have been staring at it, analyzing it, trying to figure out how to get around it or over it or through it. You have exhausted yourself with effort, with worry, with the endless strategizing of the logical mind. But the wall is not waiting for your effort. It is waiting for your voice. It is waiting for you to speak with the authority of one who knows that consciousness is greater than circumstance, that faith is more powerful than fear, that the word spoken with conviction has the power to rearrange reality at the molecular level. The wall is waiting for you to stop fighting it and start commanding it. It is waiting for you to stop seeing it as solid and start seeing it as fluid, as energy that can be transformed by a higher energy, as a frozen thought that can be melted by the heat of your faith. Florence Scovel Shinn spent her life teaching this truth. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are a creator of circumstance. Every condition in your life is the result of a pattern of thought, word, and action that you have repeated until it solidified into form. If you do not like the condition, you do not need to fight it. You need to change the pattern. You need to think new thoughts, speak new words, take new actions, all aligned at the frequency of what you desire instead of what you fear. The moment you do this, the moment you shift your vibration, the old condition begins to dissolve and the new condition begins to form. It is law. It is science. It is the way the universe works. The message of empowerment is this: you have everything you need right now to collapse any wall that stands between you and your desire. You do not need more education. You do not need more resources. You do not need more time. You need conviction. You need to believe with every fiber of your being that your word carries power, that your thoughts are blueprints, that your actions are decrees. You need to stop doubting yourself and start trusting the law. You need to stop waiting for permission from the outer world and start claiming your authority as a center of divine consciousness. The power is already within you. It has always been within you. You simply need to activate it through the precision of your consciousness. Use your voice, not the voice of complaint, not the voice of worry, not the voice of doubt. Use the voice of decree. Speak as if you have authority because you do. Speak as if your word is law because it is. Speak as if the wall has already fallen, because in the realm of truth it has. The physical dimension is just catching up with the spiritual reality you have decreed. Your job is to hold the frequency of that reality, to refuse to waver, to refuse to be moved by appearances, to stand firm in the knowing that what you have spoken must manifest because the law is operating and the law never fails. Use your conviction. Conviction is not hope. Hope says maybe. Conviction says definitely. Hope looks at the wall and wishes it would fall. Conviction looks at the wall and announces that it is falling. Hope waits for evidence before believing. Conviction believes before seeing evidence, and because it believes, the evidence appears. This is the faith that moves mountains, the faith that collapses walls, the faith that transforms impossibilities into inevitabilities. You do not need to see the path before you walk it. You need to decree the path, hold the image of the path, and walk as if the path is there. And as you walk, the path appears beneath your feet, because the law is responding to your conviction by creating what you believe. The promised land is not a distant destination. It is the state of consciousness where you know that all things are possible, where you trust the law completely, where you speak and watch reality rearrange itself to match your word. The promised land is not a place. It is a frequency, And you can tune to that frequency right now in this moment by deciding that you will no longer accept walls as permanent, that you will no longer bow to obstacles, that you will no longer live as if you are powerless. You are not powerless. You are backed by the infinite intelligence of the universe, and that intelligence is waiting for you to claim it, to use it, to demonstrate it through the precision of your thought, word, and action. The promised land is just one shout away, one decree spoken with absolute conviction, one image held with unwavering focus, one action taken in faith. That is all it takes to begin the process of collapsing the wall. You do not need to see the entire path. You do not need to know how it will happen. You simply need to take the first step, to speak the first word, to hold the first image. And as you do, the law begins to work. Circumstances begin to shift. People begin to move. Opportunities begin to appear. And before you know it, the wall that seemed so solid, so high, so permanent, is crumbling before your eyes. Not because you forced it, but because you vibrated it to dust through the power of your consciousness aligned with law. This is your inheritance, this is your design. You were built to command, not to beg. You were built to decree, not to plead. You were built to speak and watch walls fall, to vibrate and watch obstacles dissolve, to align with law and watch miracles manifest. Stop waiting for the wall to move. It is waiting for you to speak. Open your mouth. Speak the word. Command the barrier to dissolve, and then watch with calm certainty as it obeys. Here is your challenge, the 7-day shout. For the next 7 days you will pick your biggest obstacle, the wall that has been standing the longest, the barrier that seems the most impossible, and you will apply the Jericho Protocol with precision. Day 1 through day 6, you will march. You will look at the problem and do absolutely nothing. You will not worry. You will not strategize. You will not complain. You will simply hold the inner image of the wall already fallen and refuse to energize the fear. Each day you will speak your decree once in the morning and once in the evening. The walls of lack and delay now crumble away, and I enter my promised land under grace. You will speak it with conviction, from the victorious attitude, knowing that the law is operating. On day 7 you will shout. You will speak your decree with the full force of your conviction. You will feel the vibration in your chest. You will see the wall crumbling in your mind's eye. And then you will take the advance. You will do something that proves the wall is gone. If the wall is financial, you will give something away or buy something that assumes abundance. If the wall is health, you will make a plan that assumes vitality. If the wall is relational, you will reach out or make space for connection. You will act as if the obstacle has already dissolved, because in the realm of consciousness, it has. And then you will wait, with calm certainty, for the physical dimension to catch up with the spiritual reality you have decreed. This is not a game. This is not an experiment. This is a demonstration of law. If you do this with precision, if you hold the frequency without wavering, if you refuse to contaminate your decree with doubt or your image with fear, the wall will fall. It may fall suddenly. It may fall gradually. It may fall from a direction you do not expect. But it will fall because the law is operating, and the law never fails. The only way this challenge can fail is if you fail to hold the frequency, if you give up before the 7 days are complete, if you speak the words but hold the image of defeat. If you do it correctly, the wall must fall. This is not belief, this is mechanics. After the 7 days, you will have proof. You will have experienced the power of the word. You will have seen firsthand that consciousness is greater than circumstance, that faith collapses walls, that the law responds to conviction. And once you have this proof, once you have demonstrated the law in your own life, you will never doubt it again. You will know that you are not a victim. You will know that you are a creator. You will know that your word carries power, that your thoughts are blueprints, that your actions are decrees. And you will carry this knowing into every area of your life, collapsing walls, dissolving obstacles, opening paths, demonstrating that the promised land is not a distant hope, but a present reality for those who align with law. But here is the warning. If you take this challenge and then abandon it halfway through, if you march for 3 days and then give up, if you speak the decree but continue to worry, you will reinforce the wall instead of collapsing it. The protocol requires completion. It requires consistency. It requires that you hold the frequency for the full 7 days without wavering. If you are not ready to commit to 7 days of unwavering faith, do not start. Wait until you are ready. But when you are ready, when you decide that you will no longer accept the wall, when you commit to holding the frequency no matter what the outer appearance shows, then begin. And when you complete the 7 days, when you watch the wall crumble, you will understand why Florence Scovel Shinn called this the science of manifestation. It is not magic, it is law, and law works every time it is applied correctly. Now, the final call to action. If you want to continue learning the sacred logic of manifestation, if you want to master the principles that govern reality, if you want to become the one who speaks and watches walls fall, then subscribe to this channel. Every video on sacred logic is designed to give you one more tool, one more principle, one more technique for operating the law with precision. This is not entertainment. This is education. This is the training ground for masters of consciousness. Subscribe now and arm yourself with the power of the word. Like this video to ensure that this teaching reaches others who stand before walls they were never meant to climb. Comment below with "I command it to fall" to add your voice to the frequency of those who refuse to accept barriers as permanent. The walls of Jericho fell because the Israelites followed the protocol. Your walls will fall for the same reason. You now have the knowledge, you now have the system. The only question is whether you will apply it. Will you continue to stare at the wall exhausted and defeated? Or will you take your position as a center of divine consciousness, speak the word with authority, and watch the barrier dissolve? The choice is yours. The power is yours. The law is waiting for your command. Speak, and the walls must fall.